Bobby Hurley is hot on the recruiting trail again, and I just don't know what we're supposed to do at this point.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your guide, Richie Bradshaw, here to give you expert coverage on all things Arizona State Sun Devils, from the gridiron to the hardwood and everything in between. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. If you're ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed, then head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert. What is going on with Sun Devils basketball right now? We have a mass exodus, but yet they're also cooking with recruiting. What are we supposed to think? All of that is coming up on today's episode. There has been a mass exodus from Sun Devils basketball. I don't know if you noticed or not, but things are a mess right now. There was already going to be a huge amount of roster turnover. You were losing 3 starters, including BJ Freeman, who was dismissed at the midpoint in the season. A little point is, he was dismissed at some point during the season, but he was a starter out of the gate, and you replaced him with Amir Ali, who turned it on. But you still lost Adam Miller, you still lost Alston Mason, and you still lost Bobby Hurley Jr. Now, I understand Bobby did not do much, if anything, but he was at least someone that could come off of the bench at some point in time. And last year, with all the injuries, he came off the bench a lot. So 4 players gone, including Freeman. Have you seen what's going on with the transfer portal? Because it's pretty bad. Real quick, Bashir Jihad is in the transfer portal. He's out of eligibility. I don't know how that's going to work, but he's gone. Whether you want to include him in transfers, which that's where I have him right now because he is in the portal, as far as I know, or you want to include him with guys that ran out of eligibility, which is yet another starter. He's gone. And you know who else you lost? Well, it's more of a question of who haven't you lost at this point. Joson, Sanon, who was the 3rd best recruit that this program has ever brought in. He was the first to transfer out. He transferred before the Crown tournament for the Sun Devils, and they were bounced, one and done. At least you lost to Nebraska, who won the whole thing, I guess. Yeah, that was just a mess from start to finish. But Sanon is gone. He has already committed to St. John's, which was previously, during his recruiting, one of his top choices before he committed to Arizona and then flipped from Arizona to Arizona State. St. John's was a place he was very, very interested in. He was hanging out with them during some of the March Madness events that were going on, and not a surprise that he ends up committing there. I don't know if I speak for everyone else. I am personally rooting for him. One of my all-time favorite players, certainly of the last several years. You also lost Jayden Quaintance, the highest-rated recruit that Sun Devils basketball has ever landed. First of all, he missed a lot of time last year in the second half of the season. It turns out he tore his ACL. So he is undergoing surgery. It's going to be anywhere between 8 to 10 months is what they're predicting. But we all know that ACLs are more often than not about a year surgery to recover from. We've seen guys that take a lot longer than that. It's very different for every individual. So maybe it is going to be 8 to 10 months for Jayden Quaintance, or maybe it's a year and a half. Every individual is different. But nonetheless, he is in the transfer portal. He is claiming that he's going to be ready for the start of the season, which would be in November. So that's a 7-month time frame roughly to be able to get there. It'd be very early. But he's still going to be one of the highest sought after commodities in the portal. I believe he's the number 4 prospect in the portal right now. We'll see what ends up happening for him. Shawn Phillips Jr. is transferring, and that was such a massive blow, man. That was such a big loss. Like, a lot of people are going to look at Sanon and Quaintance and say those were huge losses. They're former 5 stars. They were going to be the future of the program, all that good stuff. And I agree with you. But I will tell you that Shawn Phillips Jr., who has spent the last 2 years of the program and was supposed to spend his third and final season with the program, could have been, and I mean this, whole chest out, he could have been the face of the program next year because Sanon was gone, because Quaintance was gone. There was not a lot returning at that point. We already talked about how Alston Mason, Adam Miller, Bashir Jihad, and BJ Freeman were all gone. 4 of your 5 starters from the first game. Jayden Quaintance, your other starter, is gone. Joson Sanon, who was your top 6 man, is gone. So Shawn Phillips is returning as really the only guy, but he was also in his 3rd year at that point, and he broke out this season. I said his first year in 2023-24 that he played a little too soft for my preference when he got here. Like, for lack of a better term, he did. And yeah, he turned that around this year. He realized how big, strong, and physical he can be. He became a really solid shooter from the floor and inside the paint. He put a lot of buckets down and was one of the better rebounders for the team, which is what they desperately needed. He showed up, and he ended up being one of the best players that the Sun Devils had from this past season. He's gone, and that hurts. You also lose Austin Nunez, who, what a weird career he's had. Starts at Arizona State, transfers to Ole Miss, goes back into the transfer portal, says he is directly coming to Arizona State, no other place, and now he's back in the transfer portal. And he's been banged up and injured throughout his career. He only played for 4 games last year with ASU. Just a weird career. The good news is he'll be able to redshirt, and then he'll have 2 more years of eligibility because he only played 4 games last season. But just weird. Brandon Gardner is also transferring. We did not see him last year. And Bryson Long is transferring. We did not see him last year. But nonetheless, that is, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 transfers. And then, what do we say? 4 guys that are out of eligibility. So that is 11 players from this team that are contributors. Not to mention the other countless amounts of seniors that were on this team that I can't all fit in there. That's a lot of losses. And the biggest thing that a lot of fans are grabbing onto right now, and I don't blame them, is the greatest recruiting class in program history, undisputable, not even close. The top-ranked recruit in program history, the 3rd-ranked recruit in program history, and Amir Ali, who is a really high 4-star, and another one of the best recruits in Sun Devil history. I don't have it in front of me. I imagine he was in the top 10, or he would have been just outside of it. As of right now, Ali is still on the roster, and knock on wood that he's coming back because he might be the best player on this team right now. So you have the greatest greatest recruiting class that has been completely dismantled. Ali is awesome. I am beyond excited for his return. And I think that he's got a chance to use this term over and over again, but be the face of the program. And the reason why I say that so much, as obnoxious as it is to say that over and over again, ASU hasn't had that in a long time. A long time. Probably Remy Martin? Like, I know Kamani Lawrence had a good run, but I don't remember Kamani Lawrence ever being like the Sun Devil. Like, they just have not had that. So if you have Ali for 2 years, who's a very good player, came on late down the stretch, and is able to pick it up at the start of next year, yeah, he can be that fan favorite kind of player for you. But losing Sanon and Quaintance is unbelievable. Sanon is gone for sure. Quaintance, could he return? Yeah, he could. I don't feel good about it at all. In fact, I would put a lot of money that he's going to go to Arkansas because, of course, I can't remember the coach. Calipari? I think so. I don't know. He originally recruited him at Kentucky, took the job at Arkansas. Quaintance was committed to Kentucky. Calipari leaves, didn't follow him to Arkansas, which I thought was weird. Comes to Arizona State. So that'll be a really interesting situation. I'll tell you what, though. As big a deal as it is to lose this recruiting class, I think your biggest loss was Shawn Phillips. I truly do. And this is coming from the biggest Joson Sanon fan and Joson Sanon stan. Love how that rhymes. And the best recruit ever with Quaintance. And I stand firm that Shawn Phillips was probably, or at least low-key, the biggest loss that this team suffered. He was the true big man that really stepped up for a team that over the last several years has not really had that presence. They've really lacked a strong, consistent big man. And Shawn Phillips became that. And he broke out mid-season. And he was a great player. Defensively, shooting, he was phenomenal. He realized his potential. And he was trending towards star status for this team. Here's word of the day again. Could have been the face of the program as a guy who would have been spending 3 years with the Sun Devils, which is unheard of at this point. These were preventable losses. That's the biggest takeaway here. ASU did not have to lose these kids. They were going to lose seniors. They were going to lose a handful of guys to the transfer portal. Like Brandon Gardner. We were never going to keep him. He didn't get on the court last year. He was gone for sure. There was a chance for a guy like Bryson Long, who I also did not realize had more eligibility, to transfer to. We were going to have departures that weren't just seniors. But you did not have to lose Joson Sanon. You did not have to lose Jayden Quaintance. You did not have to lose Shawn Phillips Jr. But it happened. And that's a really big deal. But now ASU is right back to recruiting. Because if there's one thing that Bobby Hurley is good at, it's recruiting a program that is perennial losing. Like they don't know how to win, but I don't know, somehow 4 stars are coming to this program on a regular basis. Bobby Hurley's doing that once again. That's coming up next on the show. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let me talk to you about our friends over at TurboTax, because this is sponsored, this episode, by our friends over at Intuit TurboTax. Taxes used to be waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, worrying, and wondering some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress, and you can focus on your day. The expert is going to find every possible deduction for you as well. File every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. This is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax live full services, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thanks again for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day, and a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Bobby Hurley is cooking with recruiting. What's new? If there's one thing that he is able to do for this program, it is on an annual basis bring in some of the most talented players that the program has ever seen. Of the 25 highest rated recruits in the history of the program since the early 2000s when that stuff was recorded, he has landed somewhere between 17 to 18 of the top 25 highest rated recruits. That's a 10-year span. And he has brought in the vast majority, over 50% of the highest rated recruits the program has ever seen, were brought in by Bobby frickin' Hurley. Except he didn't say frickin'. And he's doing it again. He is doing it again. The transfer portal's off to a great start. He has brought in 2 guys who should find immediate roles. 2 guys that are ranked as 4 stars in the transfer portal. The first one is Marcus Adams Jr. He's a forward from Cal State Northridge. We're going to talk about him a little more because that might be a really, really good pickup for ASU. And then they brought in Maurice Moe Odom, who is a guard. He played at Pepperdine. There is a good chance he's going to be your guy who runs the point this year. That would be a great opportunity. There is a big rumor, and maybe it's just speculation, but it feels like there's a lot of smoke to this fire, that Duke Brennan could be returning to ASU. He spent his freshman year at ASU. He transferred, goes to downtown Phoenix, plays 2 years at Grand Canyon. It was fine. I know he got on the court a little bit, but it definitely was not the role he was wanting. He's back in the transfer portal. There appears to be a lot of smoke to the fire that he could return to ASU. And with Shawn Phillips gone, here's a starting job at center. If you want it, it's all yours. Now, there's a couple other guys I'm looking at too. And another guy, former Sun Devil, that I know everyone is manifesting, including yours truly, and that would be Frankie Collins. Frankie Collins played 2 seasons with ASU. He was on his way to being, here we go, the face of the program. Hopefully you're not taking an adult shot whenever I say that. Otherwise, I am not paying for your medical bills. He was on his way to being the face of the program. Through 2 years, he was a very consistent, reliable, exciting player for the team. He set the single-season steals record for ASU. The only thing he sucked at, and I mean sucked, was free throw shooting. Very unreliable. But he was a good point scorer, he was great on defense, and he was your best rebounder as a 6'1" point guard. He's in the transfer portal. He was at TCU last year, but he got injured. There's a lot of fans who are clamoring and wanting him to come back. I do think there's a chance for him. And the other guy I'm looking at is Sammy Yine. And if that name sounds familiar, it should, because he was in the Sun Devils 2024 recruiting class before Jayden, Quaintance, and Joson Sanon committed. He decided to flip his commitment and go to GCU. A better opportunity to find the court. He didn't. He did not find the court. So he's back in the transfer portal, and considering ASU recruited him, considering he is a Valley kid, he may just want to stay home and go back to the program that originally recruited him. Now, I don't know if Bobby Hurley is extending that offer to him, since you were committed as a freshman, signed, and then got out of your letter of intent to go flip your commitment. Like, I don't know, but he'd definitely be a guy I'm looking at. So, really good start to the transfer portal with Marcus Adams Jr. and Moe Odom. Let's see if Duke Brennan lands here, and I'm keeping my eye out for Frankie Collins and Sammy Yine. I really think Collins has a big, realistic chance to end up at ASU. The recruiting class, too. It's looking pretty good, man. They landed a big name this morning, which is why I'm actually glad that I was a little late to the party to get this bad boy recorded. They landed this morning 4-star Marcus Jackson, center/forward from Word of God Christian University. If that sounds familiar, it should, because that's where Jayden, Quaintance, and where Trevor Best played high school football. Or football? High school basketball. Yeah. If you remember, probably a couple weeks ago on the show, I had mentioned that what I would try and do to keep Jayden Quaintance, and obviously this failed, was I wanted to surround him with talent that he liked and was comfortable with, and NIL and all that good stuff. But one of my theories was that you bring in Marcus Jackson. He was one of the top recruits that was left out there. I believe he was a top 50 guy, and they had a very realistic opportunity to bring him in. And he obviously he ends up getting brought in. He was top 100, not top 50. But he ends up getting brought in, and I love it. I do, because that's a good basketball player. And, you know, at the time, I was hoping that could be a ploy to keep Jayden Quaintance. That's one of the biggest reasons why Trevor Best was such an important addition for Sun Devils basketball. One, he's good at hoops, and he showed that. But two, he and Quaintance had a good relationship when they were at Word of God Academy. So, unless there's something we don't know, right? Marcus Jackson felt like a really good addition for this program. And lo and behold, there he is. Maybe he convinces JQ to turn his commitment around. I don't know. Maybe. They also get 4-star forward Jayon Pitt from Bella Vista out in Scottsdale. He was the number 3 recruit in Arizona. That's a really good get. There is 2 more 3-stars that are coming in. Cash Polk, a forward from Argyle, Texas, and Frederick Leo Curtis, a center from Cambridge Arts in Massachusetts. So 4 guys in the recruiting class, technically 5, because Trevor Best was part of this recruiting class, but he was able to not reclassify, enroll early with ASU because he had graduated high school in the winter, so then he was able to join ASU for the second half of the season. And we obviously know that as the season came to an end, he became a very important player for ASU, and he ended up looking really good. So Trevor Best was also a 3-star. This is a pretty rock-solid class, and they might not be done. I'm not sure where to go from here. I do know I would love to see 4-star Maper Maker, who's a center at Bella Vista, so teammate of Jayon Pitt, and 4-star recruit, number 6 kid in Arizona. I think he has 2 offers from Oregon and Arizona State. So ASU has a 50-50 chance. And again, there's a wide open center spot right now because there's not a center on this team. There's a forward / guard in Amir Ali. There's a guard in Trevor Best. And who else is returning? That's all I can think of off the top of my head. At least major contributors. So yeah, ASU is going to be looking for guys. Their current transfer class has a forward and a guard. The current recruiting class has 2 centers. You have an opportunity to find a role, man. So I think that Maker could be a really good addition for ASU. But as we've come to know, Bobby Hurley, ace recruiter, he does this every year. ASU is currently the 26th overall class in the country, if you can believe that, coming off of undeniably the worst season of the Bobby Hurley program. And he has the 26th overall recruiting class in the country right now, according to 24/7 Sports. And I don't think they're done. I am 100% anticipating more transfers. I think there's a lot of fire to Duke Brennan. I think ASU will be a heavy playmaker, or not playmaker, a heavy player for Frankie Collins, and I'd be looking at Sammy Ine. So there's 3 more guys right there. They've got 5 guys for their recruiting class, if you include Trevor Best, and I think that there's a chance that Maker could also join. That rebuilds your team. Well, is that enough to get fans back invested? I don't know what we're supposed to do, but we're going to talk about that next on the podcast. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let me talk about our friends over at Monarch Money now. If you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center for yourself. You can track all your accounts, all your investments, all your spending in one place. And you are able to manage that money. You can stay on top of it. You can start building your wealth. I had to take a look at it for myself because I have bad spending habits. And it turns out I do a lot of food delivery. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering where my money went coming from food delivery. So Monarch was able to point that out to me, and I was smart enough to listen to their advice and take that down a little bit. It's really easy to use Monarch. It's all in one place. You're not juggling multiple apps. You can track your spending. You can plan long-term goals if you want. It makes the process smoother than easier. It can track personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. And again, thank you guys so much for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. Shout out my everydayers who are here every day. What are we supposed to do as fans? I don't know. And I'm curious if you guys know. But this is a very peculiar spot for Sun Devils basketball right now because I think everyone is done. Everyone is fed up. And I'm pretty much at that point too. I have done everything I can over the season to stay positive and back up Bobby and say, the future's bright and recruiting is upticking and maybe they're going to be able to get something going. But, that just hasn't happened. But on one hand, ASU is reloading this roster. You were always going to lose a lot of players. You were always losing a bunch of your starters and a bunch of your main contributors. So you knew that you were going to have to attack the transfer portal. And so far, ASU has, with Marcus Adams Jr. and Moe Odom. Remember earlier I told you we had to talk about Marcus a little more? Yeah, here's why. Last year that he spent at Cal State Northridge, he averaged over 16 points a game. He shot 52.6% from the field. He shot 39.5% from the three and was 73.5% on the line. That sounds pretty good to me. Now, obviously, Cal Northridge is quite a different level of competition, but you have a guy who is just a shooter. You feel pretty good about your odds of bringing him in and having that success. Last year, Alston Mason and Bashir Jihad come from smaller schools, and they end up being two of the most important, if not the two most important players for the team last season. They were good scorers. They did what they did best at smaller schools. So it's not impossible that these guys won't be able to translate. Moe Odom spent last year at Pepperdine. Pretty solid college, all things considered. 13.1 points per game, 45.2% shooting from the field, 37.9% from deep, and a 79.3% free throw shooter. Yep, sounds good. Line me up for those. They're both decently reliable on the line. Odom is, compared to what we've seen over the last several years, Odom is about the most reliable guy we're going to get on the line right now. And Adams is just a really solid shooter. So you love that. You should be able to find those guys a role immediately. Now look at this recruiting class. This is going to sound crazy to you, but hear me out. Marcus Jackson, the 4-star from Word of God, which is where Jayden Quaintance came from, I think he can take the Jayden Quaintance role. I've seen Marcus Jackson listed as a power forward and as a center. When Quaintance was coming out, he was listed as a center. I viewed him more as a power forward. They're very similar. They're not 7-footers, but they are big physical guys. Marcus Jackson is listed at 6'8", 230 coming out of high school. So, yeah, I like that he could potentially be a center for you, even if he's a little on the smaller side. No, he's not a 7-footer, but that doesn't suddenly mean that he's not a good basketball player. He is a good basketball player. So, I'm excited to see what he can do. There's a chance he finds the court very early in his freshman season. There's a chance he starts right out the gate, depending on what happens with the center position, and he's one of your big men. I could definitely see that role. And then Jayon Pitt could also find some significant time for ASU. Depending on what happens in the transfer portal, it'll be hard for him to find time to get on the court immediately. That was the case with Amir Ali, another highly recruited Valley kid. It took him some time to get on the court. And by the time he did, he looked pretty good. He figured it out. And either way, he was still getting double-digit minutes a game as a 6th-man, 7th-man, off-the-bench guy. So Pitt could be in a similar role, and you'd be very happy with that. And they're still returning Amir Ali, who's going to be plugged and played as a starter for the team. And again, he ended the year red hot. And then you're going to have Trevor Best as a potential starter, or maybe your top reserve, or maybe your 6th man, something like that. And also like Ali, he stepped up at the end of the season when it mattered. I want to put out into the universe My best possible starting 5. Putting it into the universe. Frankie Collins, Moe Odom, Marcus Adams, Amir Ali, Duke Brennan. Trevor Best is my 6th man, and Jayon Pitt and Marcus Jackson are 2 of my most important players. That is my absolute pipe dream scenario for ASU, is to land Collins and Brennan through the transfer portal, and then I would have Maker have a role as well. That's my best case scenario for this team. Now, on the other hand, ASU just lost Jayden, Quaintance, and Joson Sanon. ASU just lost Shawn Phillips Jr. You can't lose these guys. Oh, and don't worry, I didn't forget the fact that ASU missed out on Koa Pete. That is, by the way, unacceptable. Because Koa Pete, you were one of the front runners, if not the front runner, for the majority of the process for Koa Pete. You should have had him. No ifs, ands, or buts for me. You should have landed Koa Pete. And not landing him was devastating and infuriating. That should not have happened. He should have been a Sun Devil. They had every chance to secure him. I felt like they had secured him at some point in time. And they didn't. So that's a shame. And the image of ASU basketball right now is just stained. It's bad. It's never been a program that's been looked upon in high regard. Not in the state, not by the fans or the alumni, and certainly not by the national media. But their image is so dreadfully bad right now. ASU was picked to finish, I believe, 11th in the Big 12 for their preseason rankings. I said that was too low. I said ASU should be in the top half. They finished 15th. I am willing to guarantee you, unless they somehow are able to flip a 5-star or just kill this transfer class, I am willing to promise you for the next preseason poll for this upcoming year, they will be picked dead last in the Big 12. And they should be. So, at one point, what are you going to do? How do you get the fans to buy in? Is recruiting even enough right now? We just talked about how great of a recruiting class ASU has right now. The year before, they had a legendary recruiting class. They recruit great every year. It doesn't seem to matter. They don't win games. They don't go to the tournament. So at what point do we look at the recruiting and we go, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, Koa Pete could have been landed in this class. Very realistically could have been. And I still don't know if ASU fans would be bought in at this point, especially with Quaintance and Sanon in the transfer portal. Maybe Koa helps. Maybe Quaintance doesn't transfer. Sanon was already committed to St. John's at that point in time. But how much longer is recruiting going to be enough for Bobby Hurley? How much longer are we going to rely on the transfer portal? Because ASU has been heavily reliant on the transfer portal since COVID ended. They have brought in no shortage of day one starters. And I mean, they've been some of your better players. So yeah, take a look at recruiting again and go, I mean, guys aren't getting on the court. Enoch Bache didn't get on the court. He was one of the highest rated kids ever. Oh my goodness, what's his name? Bagley. Bagley wasn't able to get on the court. I can't remember his first name right now. Was it Marcus? Marcus Bagley? Yes, Marcus Bagley. He wasn't able to get on the court. And part of that was injuries and part of that was other stuff. But you would think a player as talented as him could have found his way on the court. They have not been able to get the most out of their recruiting. And these transfers are placeholders. They don't get them to stay. So at this point, what can Bobby Hurley do? I mean, it starts with a tournament appearance. It starts there. That is the bare minimum. I don't care that this is basically a brand new roster. I wouldn't care if you brought in only 3 stars or unranked guys or transfers that no one wanted. I wouldn't care because I would tell you it's tournament or bust, man. I said this year was tournament or bust, and he's still getting one more chance. So yeah, there is no excuse to not go to the tournament. I don't care if this was the highest rated recruiting class ever. I don't care if it was the worst in the Bobby Hurley era. It starts with tournament or bust. And quite frankly, I think you need to win a game, maybe 2 games. And now I want to ask you guys, like, even if we get there, legitimate question, and I'll leave off with this. Does a Sweet 16 appearance even fix anything with Bobby Hurley? Do you move on with him as your head coach if he gets to a Sweet 16? To a lesser extent, if he somehow wins a title, is he safe? Because I feel like that is how bad he has burned his bridges. Fans feel ready to riot, and I just don't know what you do. I don't know if there's a possible way to move on from Hurley right now, and I wish there was some way that we know we could. Maybe a booster will step up and pay off his buyout for his contract, which I think is like $4 million. I don't know if there's anything Bobby Hurley can do. And that's where I leave you guys. Does a Sweet 16 fix it? Does a championship fix it? Or are you just done? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36. The podcast is there at LO_SunDevils. Wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. You will get an update wherever, whenever you post, or I post. Excuse me. Whenever we post new content here on Locked On Sun Devils. I appreciate each and every single one of you, as always, for tuning in to make Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. If you couldn't tell, we are back. We have the audio recording and everything is going to be good to go. So get ready for us to be back in full force. Football coverage is coming up. I've got some interviews set up and ready to go. And we got lots to get through the month of April. So make sure that now's never been a better time to subscribe. So I'll catch you next time. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.